The Buffalo School Board is just creating policies where it basically ties the hands behind the backs of the teachers that are trying to do the right thing. And I have multiple teachers, multiple interviews, I have hundreds of stories via written. But they all say the same thing. They've all attempted to do the right thing, and they've all been instructed by the school board that they're not allowed to do it. And I've asked repeatedly, and nobody knows that this is actually written down, but every single teacher has told me this without me asking. They've all told me the same thing. Buffalo school teachers are not allowed to call 911. They have to talk to an administrator, and the administrator makes that call.
Geez, Nick, does that ever come up in one of these stories where something happens and it could affect the health, welfare, and well-being of a child?
It sure does.
Wow.
Multiple times.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we can go into the THC gummy ones. So I've interviewed multiple people on that. I've interviewed the uncle of one of the boys that took the 500 milligram edible. And he's very disappointed with the school board. How do 500 milligram edibles just wind up on the hallway floor or the locker room floor in a middle school? And then why would a teacher pick them up and give them to children? Whatever, stupid shit happens. Maybe that is happen. Maybe that did happen. That's not my overall issue with the thing. My issue is the school and their policies at the administrative level do not allow things to get addressed as quickly as they should for the safety of children. The paramedics who I've talked to and I've interviewed.
Quick, what is the age of the children? This is elementary?
11 and 12.
Okay, so you have 11 and 12. And 5 milligrams, 5 will wreck somebody that's never done it, especially when you weigh 80 pounds, 90 pounds. Now, 500 milligrams, like what would 50 do?
I know what 500 does to an 11-year-old because they were hospitalized with resting heart rates of 130.
You said he found it on the floor?
He allegedly found it on the floor, either in the hallway or in the locker room. And I have a picture of the THC gummies. They resembled Sour Patch Kids, but as you can see, Stony Patch covered in weed.
They've got singular cyclops eyes.
It's singular cyclops eyes that in a colored version, they're very red as if you'd been smoking weed. Huh. So, but granted, it does, if you're just taking a glance, maybe it does kind of look like Sour Patch Kids and maybe it was all an accident. Whatever, that guy should still be fired, but that's separate. My issue is when the EMTs get called, the EMTs show up, and I've talked to the EMTs. They pull up to the school and nobody will let them in. The doors are locked. Now, if a child is overdosing on an illegal drug, I would either have somebody sitting at the curb waiting for the EMTs to show up and then immediately take them to the children, or I would have the children outside waiting and hand them off. Not what happened. Took the EMTs, I believe he said 8 to 10 minutes to find someone to let them into the building. And nobody would even come to the doors. It was actually the security guard from the parking lot that came in, and the security guard's like, hey, what's going on? He had no idea. He had not been briefed on the issue. So it took them somewhere between 15 to 20 minutes from arriving on the scene to get to the children that were overdosing on an illegal drug. Once they got in there, the principal was apparently just didn't really give a shit. The school resource officer that was there comes up and is arguing with the EMTs like, well, do they really have to go to the hospital? They look fine. And the EMT is like, yes, they're going to the hospital. So that was an issue. And then a patrol officer showed up on the call as well. And the SRO and the patrol officer got into like an argument about why that guy shouldn't have even shown up and the SRO had it under control.
Meanwhile, you said this kid has a resting heart rate of about
130, correct. He's having the worst day of his life. He just had 500 milligram edible.
Just so we reference, if it's 50 per gummy, so it's a 500 in a little bag.
The two of them ate an entire bag.
Jesus.
So yeah, 250 per, and again, like 5 would wreck somebody at that.
Yeah.
That level, 50, 250 if they split it.
So they ate the entire bag because it was candy. And so this is all going on. And I believe it was the principal or the assistant principal. It was an administrator that had the bag. They had to go into the administrator's office and be like, hey, I'm trying to figure out how much drugs these kids had under your supervision. Where's it at? And she had it sitting underneath her big like metal tumbler. And the EMT said like she was trying to hide it. And when he directly asked her for it, she like reluctantly gives it to him. And he investigates, sees that it's 500 milligrams in the bag. Okay, now he knows. He hands it back to her, takes the kids to the hospital. Comes back, and he's, taking notes. He wants to see the bag again to either take the bag or take a picture of it. We don't know where the bag went.
Oh.
So the evidence disappeared.
Wait a second. I feel like the destruction intentional or unintentional, of evidence is like an ongoing theme with the City of Buffalo school system, whether it be video evidence or physical evidence like this bag.
Richard, isn't it crime?
Destruction of evidence? I believe there's something. I'm tisming right now because I believe New York State Penal Code has that.
Sounds like justice is being obstructed.
Now, so like that's pretty bad, but like it's an indicator of the overall problem, right? So they're just not working with first responders in the way that they should. And all the teachers have told me this. They're not allowed to call 911. They have to do everything through the administration. And I interviewed another teacher who wanted to remain anonymous, so we're going to play that clip here in a second. But has a story, and I believe I've shown you guys a video, so we don't have to watch it. We'll just play it for the audience.
When I taught at another school in the city, the music teacher had a student that passed out cold. And this was probably like a 6th grader. She ran over to my room, the teacher, and she said, so-and-so just passed out on the floor. I can't wake him up. Come help. I went over there. I'm like, we got to call the police. So we called the rule is you have to call an administrator before you call police. You have to. So we call the administrator, and the administrator says, you are not calling anybody. We're going to call the mother and have her come over. And me and this teacher are like, what are you talking about? Like, we can't wake the kid up. Like, we need an ambulance here now. No. The principal came down to our room and stood there while this kid is passed out. Passed out. No ambulance, nothing. Do you think that's crazy? Mom finally shows up. Gosh, I don't even remember how it ended. I know Mom was motherfucking everybody, and shame on me. I was younger back then. But there's always this idea, like you're always scared of like, you're going to get in literally, I don't know what ruling the administrators have, but there's something that they do that you are scared shitless.
Do you remember what ended up happening with the girl? Like, why she passed out? I mean, did she get to the hospital eventually?
She did get to the mom brought her to the hospital. Yeah. And I remember she was back in the building the following week. So.
I mean, she was out of school for days after this.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they probably didn't double back to let you know what the medical issue was. But regardless, I mean, that girl could have been ODing on drugs, and it took, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to get mom, drive there from work, pick her up, drive her to the hospital rather than just calling the ambulance?
Yeah, it was probably a good, I would say it was about 20 minutes. I think it was about 20 minutes. It was awful. Awful. Like, we could not wake this student up.
So, I mean, it took this kid an hour to get to the hospital when she lost consciousness and was unresponsive. And she didn't end up making it back to school till the following week.
What I just don't understand is the incentive. Is it just whether it's anti-cop sentiments or just trying to make the school seem better than it is, or like it's functioning better than it is? Why do they feel like they just have? What is their goal?
I truly believe, on my side, just the overview, stranger to it, haven't deep diving. It is, we need to look good. Look how good. Yeah, we had 17,000 calls, but half of those were just what were they called?
School other.
Yeah, school other, the information only.
It's small stuff. See,
Yeah.
we're really
Miscellaneous.
safe. Yeah, miscellaneous. That we're really safe. You're good to go. Funding, however that works, and you just keep doing that.
Yeah, and then that shithead lawyer that works for the school from Lipschitz Mathis or whatever the that law firm is comes on the news and he's like actually the sheer volume of calls that they've contacted the police clearly shows that they're working great with law enforcement. I'm going to conveniently ignore the fact that 54% of the calls were listed as school other. So then we call them out and that doesn't work. So then they get John J. Flynn, I believe his name is, former district attorney.
His middle name is Jizz.
And the news brings him on and he is like, well, actually, I was a district attorney, and I promise you that, you know, the whole time, I realized that the dude was only getting charged with misdemeanors for assault and child endangerment, and then Rich came out and said that he was kidnapping, and then the DA, after having a bunch of backlash, magically was like, oh shit, we are going to charge this guy with felony kidnapping. But, you know, that had nothing to do with the podcast, and I would know because I'm a former DA. What the news didn't tell you is Flynn also works for Lipschitz Mathis, or whatever the that law firm is, that is directly working for the school board. The entire thing's bullshit and rigged.
So the only people
incestuous.
that are talking out or speaking out in their favor are people who have a financial incentive to do so.
Correct.
Huh.
Financial and legal obligation to do so.
Just clarifying.
Isn't that neat? Isn't it cool how the news left that part out, that he's working for the same law firm that protects all the administrators?
You know,
it's crazy the news would do that.
You know, it's funny because Flynn also said that he didn't have any incidents where the school was covering anything up during his tenure at DA at the DA's office as the DA. But you know what, Nick?
It took me all of about 15 minutes to find out that not only was that a lie, you can actually still go on change.org or change.gov and sign a petition to this day demanding that he step down as DA because he refused to prosecute childhood sex crimes appropriately. That's the entire reason they wanted him to step down.
How many thousands of signatures does it have already?
It had 3,500 before I put it out to the internet. There's probably hundreds more because people went and also signed it just from mine. But it was 3,500 people legitimately from Buffalo that would have signed this thing demanding that he step down for not properly addressing childhood sex crimes.
Do you have any one, like a single instance of those? Just one of the stories.
So a lot of the story that it goes back to is in years prior when he was the DA, the Archdiocese, the Catholic Church operating in the area of Dubuque, had a priest or multiple priests that had been accused of childhood sex crimes, whatever, and he apparently did not do his due diligence in investigating and punishing those sex crimes. And I think the Archdiocese of Dubuque is like in a stage of bankruptcy right now because they've been sued so many times. But that being sued is a civil lawsuit,
Right.
not a criminal lawsuit. So that means that the parents, allegedly, if these kids were assaulted, we're having to go into the legal system and file and sue the church individually, and there was no criminal prosecution. And that's why they wanted this guy to step down, is because he was not doing his due diligence and punishing childhood sex crimes. So for him to come out and be like, yeah, I would have never done this as DA, it's bullshit. You did it.
Mm-hmm. Also, one of the specific things that I brought up happened during his tenure. One of the stories where there was this assault at a school pool, and the school principal, this happened 2 years ago while he was DA, and the school principal failed to not declare it, report it. And then a year later, the child that was the victim of it disclosed it to somebody else. Then it became an investigation. But guess what happens after a year? All physical evidence is gone. The video is erased and like recorded over because it's been a year. They only save it for like, let's say even 180 days. That's gone.
Yeah.
And that school principal wrote the DA and said, hey, I'm not going to come in for the subpoena that your office sent me because I did my own investigation and I don't really care. Sent a letter stating why they're going to refuse to respond to the subpoena while he was the district attorney.
I have a question. I do history videos on the internet. Mm-hmm. If I were to apply at Buffalo schools to be a history teacher with no degree in education or history, do you think that I would get hired?
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Why is that?
Well, because you don't have like a teaching degree.
Oh, so I don't have the proper training to be a teacher, yet they don't have any training to be an investigative detective, yet they can host their own investigations, determine that no crimes were conducted, and then not inform law enforcement, even though they're a mandatory reporter. That's what you're telling me.
I mean, that's exactly what I would get out of this story. And it also happened during his tenure as DA, which goes against what he was talking about when he went on the news to open his big, fat, stupid mouth.